Hi, I'm a tutor for mathsandenglish.net, and today we're going to be introducing factors, multiples, common factors and common multiples, LCMs and HCFs. Before we get into anything else, we need to look at what is a factor and what is a multiple. So the way we define a factor is something by which a number can be divided by to leave an integer. For example, 2 is a factor of 12 because I can divide 12 by 2 and I end up with 6, which is an integer. 5 is not a factor of 14 because if I divide 14 by 5, I'm not going to end up with an integer, so it can't be considered a factor. Then we have multiples. So a multiple is a number which you can get by multiplying your original number by an integer. So, for example, 12 is a multiple of 2. So 2 would be our original number and 12 is the multiple. And that's because if we have 2, we can multiply it by 6, which is an integer, and we end up with 12, which is another integer, and we know that it is a multiple of 2. Something like 17 is not a multiple of 4. So no matter what number we multiply 4 by, if we're multiplying it by an integer, we're never going to end up with 17, so 17 cannot be a multiple. The other phrase that you might come across is common multiples or common factors. Now basically what this means is you may be given 2 or more numbers and be asked for a common multiple or common factor of them, and that would be a multiple or a factor that is shared between all of the numbers that you've been given. So for example, 2 is a common factor of 8, 16, 22 and 4, because for 8, 16, 22 and 4, you can divide them all by 2 and end up with an integer. 30 is a common multiple of 5, 6, 10 and 3, because you can multiply 5, 6, 10 and 3 by various numbers, and as long as they're integers, you can end up with 30. So you can multiply 5 by 6 and 6 by 5 and 10 by 3 and end up with 30. To build further on common factors, something that you might see come up is a highest common factor, sometimes abbreviated to an HCF. Basically, when you have common factors, you might have multiple. So you might have a few numbers that have several factors that are in common with each other, and you might be asked to look for the highest of those. So, for an example, let's say you are asked for the highest common factor of 30 and 45. The best way to work it out is to write out all of the factors of each number first. So for 30, the factors are 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15 and 30. And for 45, it's 1, 3, 5, 9, 15 and 45. Now you might see that there's a few factors that they have in common. Both of them have 1, both of them have 3, both of them have 5. But which one is the highest? And the highest one that they both share is 15 in each. So the highest common factor of 30 and 45 would be 15. The next thing that we'll look at is lowest common multiples, which can also be abbreviated to LCM. So this is similar to a highest common factor in that sometimes multiple numbers will have several common multiples, and you might be asked to find the lowest one. This actually came up in our fractions videos, if you remember hearing it then. So the way to work this out is very similar to how we worked out the highest common factor. The lowest common multiple of 2 and 3 is the example we're going to look at. So you will sit and you'll write out their multiples. Now, this time, there are quite a lot of multiples that you can get up to. Technically, you could go up infinitely writing out all of the possible multiples that you could get of your numbers. So usually use your common sense and kind of only go up as far as you think you'll need to, or go up until you have found your answer. So in this case, we can see that 6 appears in both lists, and that makes it the lowest common multiple of 2 and 3. Now, to make sure you've understood, have a go at these two questions of finding a highest common factor and a lowest common multiple. If you've paused the video and come back, the two answers that you should have gotten is that the highest common factor of 12 and 18 is 6, and the lowest common multiple of 6 and 8 is 24. Next lesson, we're going to be looking at prime numbers and prime factorization.